I spent 3 hours setting up tables at my son's engagement party, while his future in-laws sipped champagne and criticized everything I did. They treated me like hired help, like I was invisible, like I didn't matter. His fiancée's mother actually snapped her fingers at me to refill her glass. I smiled and did it, because I wasn't there to make a scene. I was there for my son. What they didn't know was that on Monday morning, I'd be walking into the executive boardroom where her husband reported to me, where I signed his bonus checks and approved his vacation time, where I was his boss's boss. And they were about to find out. Before I continue, tell me your country and the time right now. My name is Catherine Reed, and I've spent 26 years building my career from the ground up. I started as a secretary at Morrison & Associates, a mid-sized consulting firm, worked nights to get my MBA, climbed every rung of that ladder through competence, determination, and refusing to accept that the ceiling was as low as people said it was. By 48, I was executive vice president of operations. I oversaw 4 departments, managed a staff of over 300 people, and reported directly to the CEO. I'd earned every inch of that title, but most people didn't know that about me. I kept my work life and personal life very separate. I didn't talk about my position, didn't name drop, didn't wear my success like armor the way some executives did. My son Marcus knew what I did, of course, but he was humble about it. Never bragged about his mom's job. Never used my position to impress people. I'd raised him to value character over credentials, substance over status. When he told me he was engaged to Amanda Whitmore, I was thrilled. He was 26, she was 25, and they'd been dating for 2 years. He showed me photos of her. Beautiful girl, bright smile, worked in marketing. He was so happy. That's all I cared about. He wanted to throw an engagement party. Nothing huge, just close family and friends. Amanda's parents wanted to host it at their home, he said. They insisted. They had a big house, a nice backyard, plenty of space. It would be easier than renting a venue. I offered to help with costs. Marcus said not to worry about it, that Amanda's parents wanted to handle everything. They were excited to welcome him into the family. That should have been my first warning sign. The party was on a Saturday afternoon. I arrived early because I'd offered to help set up. I'm not the type to show up just for the fun part. If there's work to be done, I do it. The Whitmore house was impressive. Large colonial in an expensive neighborhood, circular driveway, professionally landscaped lawn. Money, old money probably, or at least money that wanted to look old. Amanda's mother, Diane Whitmore, answered the door. She was 50-something, blonde highlights, tennis bracelet, the kind of woman who'd probably never worked a day in her life but considered herself very busy. She looked me up and down. I was wearing jeans and a casual blouse, dressed for setting up, not for the actual party yet. Oh, she said. Her tone was cool. You must be Marcus's mother. Catherine, I said, extending my hand. So nice to finally meet you. She shook my hand limply. Yes. Well, the caterers are setting up in the kitchen. You can help them if you'd like. Then she walked away. Not rude exactly, but dismissive. Like I was staff. I found the kitchen. Caterers were indeed setting up, professional team, clearly expensive. They were polite but busy. I asked what needed to be done. They said the tables outside needed to be arranged, chairs set up, linens put out. I went outside. The backyard was huge. 40 or 50 people could fit comfortably. There were stacks of folding tables and chairs that needed to be set up. I started working. Unfolding tables, positioning them, laying out tablecloths. It was physical work. My back started complaining after the first few tables. I'm in decent shape, but I'm not 25 anymore. Amanda's father, Richard Whitmore, came outside. Tall, silver hair, expensive polo shirt, holding a glass of scotch at 2 in the afternoon. He watched me work for a moment. You're doing that wrong, he said. I looked up. Excuse me? The tables. They should be in a U-shape, not rows. Amanda wants a U-shape. I'd been arranging them in rows because that's what the diagram taped to one of the tables showed. But okay. I'm happy to change it. Could you help me move them? He laughed. Not really dressed for manual labor. He gestured to his outfit like it was designer, which it probably was. He went back inside. I rearranged the tables myself. Into a U-shape. It took another 30 minutes. Marcus arrived with Amanda. They looked happy, holding hands, laughing about something. When Marcus saw me moving tables, he rushed over. "Mom, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this alone." "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just helping set up." Amanda smiled at me. "That's so sweet of you, Catherine. My mom really appreciates the help." Sweet. Like I was doing them a favor instead of helping to host my own son's engagement party. More guests started arriving. Amanda's friends, her extended family, some of Marcus's friends. Everyone dressed nicely. I was still in my setup clothes, sweating, hair pulled back in a ponytail. Diane came outside with a group of her friends. They were all holding champagne flutes, laughing about something. She saw me finishing with the last table. "Oh good, you're almost done," she said. "Can you make sure the caterers have enough ice? I think we're running low." She didn't ask. She told me, like I worked for her. I went inside, checked on the ice. We were fine. But I brought out another bag anyway just to be safe. When I came back outside, Diane was telling her friends a story. I heard Marcus's name. "He's a sweet boy," she was saying. "Very humble. I suppose that's admirable given his background. He's working in IT, I think. Something with computers. Amanda could have done better, frankly, but she seems happy. And his mother is very helpful." The way she said helpful was dripping with condescension. One of her friends asked about me. Where was Marcus's father? "Oh, single mother," Diane said. "She raised him alone. I'm sure she did her best with limited resources. She seems like a hard worker at least. Very hands-on." They all nodded sympathetically like I was some charity case. I stood there holding a bag of ice, invisible to them, listening to them dissect my life and my son's worth based on assumptions and prejudice. I should have said something then. Should have corrected her. But I didn't. Because Marcus was happy. Because this was his day. Because making a scene would only embarrass him. So I smiled. Swallowed my pride. Kept helping. The party started. I finally had a chance to change into the dress I'd brought. Something appropriate for a celebration. I did my makeup in their guest bathroom. Fixed my hair. Transformed from help to guest. When I came back outside, the party was in full swing. Marcus introduced me to people. Amanda's relatives, family, friends. Everyone was polite but distant. They'd already formed their opinion of me based on seeing me set up tables. I tried to join conversations. Got shut out or talked over repeatedly. Diane's sister asked what I did for work. I started to answer but Diane interrupted. "She works very hard," Diane said with a tight smile. "Don't you, Catherine?" "Always busy." She made it sound like I scrubbed toilets for a living. And maybe if I did, that would have been honorable work. But the way she said it wasn't honoring anything. It was dismissive. Demeaning. Richard, Amanda's father, was holding court near the bar. Talking loudly about his job. He was a senior director at Morrison & Associates, he told everyone. Big consulting firm. Very prestigious. He'd been there 15 years. Just got promoted. Company was doing very well, thanks in part to his leadership. Morrison & Associates. My company. My firm where I was executive vice president of operations. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Richard Whitmore. I knew that name. I'd seen it on organizational charts in email chains. He reported to Stephen Chan, who reported to me. Richard Whitmore worked for me. And he had no idea. I watched him for a while. Watched him brag about his importance, his influence, his success. Watched him treat the caterers like they were beneath him. Watched him call his wife over with a snap of his fingers just like she'd done to me earlier. At one point, Diane actually did snap her fingers at me. Literally snapped to get my attention. I was talking to one of Marcus's friends. "Catherine, could you ask the caterers to bring out more champagne? We're running low." Not "could you please." Not "would you mind." Just an order. Like I was staff. I excused myself from the conversation. Went inside. Found the catering manager. Told her about the champagne. She looked annoyed. "Ma'am, Mrs. Whitmore has asked us 3 times already. We've brought out everything she ordered. If she wants more, she'll need to pay for additional bottles." "I'll handle it," I said. I found Diane. Explained the situation. She looked irritated. "Well, can't you just run to the store and get some more? There's a liquor store 10 minutes away." She wanted me to leave my son's engagement party to buy more champagne because she hadn't ordered enough. "I think we have plenty," I said carefully. People are having a good time. She sighed dramatically. Fine. I suppose it will have to do. Then she walked away. Marcus found me a few minutes later. He looked concerned. Mom, are you okay? You look upset. I'm fine, sweetheart. Having a wonderful time. Amanda's parents are kind of... He trailed off. I know they can be a lot, but they mean well. I'm sure they do, I lied. The party wound down. People started leaving. I helped clean up, of course. Packed up leftover food, broke down tables, stacked chairs. Marcus tried to help, but Amanda pulled him away, wanted to introduce him to some late-arriving relatives. Richard walked by as I was folding tablecloths. Didn't offer to help. Just said, thanks for pitching in, Catherine. You've been a real team player today. Team player. Like I was an employee who'd done a good job. I smiled. Happy to help. Diane came over as I was finishing. She had that tight smile again. Well, I think that went well. Despite some limitations, we made it work. Limitations. She meant budget. She thought I was poor. I should get going, I said. Early morning tomorrow. Oh. Diane looked mildly interested. What do you do, Catherine? I don't think anyone mentioned it. I work at Morrison & Associates, I said simply. Her eyebrows went up slightly. Oh, that's Richard's company. What do you do there? I'm in operations, I said. Didn't elaborate. Let her make assumptions. She nodded. Well, that's nice. Maybe you and Richard will run into each other in the hallways. Maybe, I agreed. I left shortly after. Drove home exhausted and angry. Not at Marcus. Never at Marcus. But at the Whitmores. At their assumptions, their condescension, their treatment of me like I was less than. All weekend I thought about it. About whether to say something. About whether it mattered. By Monday morning I decided. They needed to know. Not from my ego. But because people who treat others that way, who look down on people they perceive as beneath them, needed a lesson in humility. I had a meeting scheduled Monday morning with department heads. Regular operational review. Stephen Chun would be there. Which meant I'd be seeing his direct report summary data, which included Richard Whitmore. I arrived at the office at 7. I had my own reserved parking spot, underground executive level. Took the private elevator to the top floor where the executive offices were. My office had windows overlooking the city, my name on the door with my full title. Catherine Reed, Executive Vice President of Operations. My assistant, Jennifer, greeted me with coffee and the day's schedule. The 9 a.m. meeting with Stephen and his team. Stephen had requested to bring Richard Whitmore to present a new client proposal. Perfect. The morning passed slowly. I prepared for the meeting, reviewed Richard's performance data. He was adequate. Not exceptional, not terrible. Middle of the pack. His reviews were fine. No major issues but no outstanding achievements either. At 8:55, people started filing into the large conference room. Department heads, senior directors, various managers. Stephen Chun arrived with Richard Whitmore. Richard was in a suit, carrying a leather portfolio, looking confident. He was talking to Stephen about golf. They found seats. Richard's back was to the door, talking to someone else. He hadn't seen me yet. I walked in at exactly 9. Jennifer followed with materials. The room stood, as people always did when I entered. Professional courtesy for the EVP. Good morning, everyone, I said. Let's get started. I sat at the head of the table. Opened my laptop. Looked up. Richard had turned around. He was staring at me. His face had gone completely white. I smiled pleasantly. Good morning, Richard. I heard you have a proposal to present today. I'm looking forward to it. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Stephen looked between us, confused. Richard, you okay? Stephen asked. Richard was still staring. I could see him processing. The woman who'd set up tables at his house. Who'd been treated like help. Who'd been dismissed and condescended to. That woman was now sitting at the head of the table in the executive boardroom. His boss's boss. I waited. Let the silence stretch. Finally, Richard found his voice. Ms. Reed. I didn't realize. That we'd met? I said smoothly. Yes, we did. Saturday at my son's engagement party. You remember Marcus? He's marrying your daughter, Amanda. The room was dead silent. Everyone was watching now. Stephen looked shocked. You're Marcus's mother? Richard, you didn't mention. Richard was sweating now. We didn't. She didn't say. I smiled. I don't tend to lead with my job title at social events, Richard. I find it puts people on edge. Better to see how they treat others when they think there's no benefit to being polite. His face was red now. Mortified. Now I continued, let's hear your proposal. I'm sure you've prepared thoroughly. He hadn't. I could tell immediately. He stumbled through the presentation, forgot key data, mixed up client names. Stephen looked increasingly embarrassed. The other department heads were exchanging glances. When Richard finished, I asked questions. Detailed questions about market analysis, revenue projections, implementation timelines. Questions he should have been able to answer easily but couldn't. He fumbled, guessed, tried to deflect. It was painful to watch. Thank you, Richard, I said finally. I think we need more development before we can move forward with this. Stephen, can you and Richard refine this and bring it back next week? Stephen nodded quickly. Of course. Absolutely. Richard and I will work on it. The meeting continued. Other presentations, other business. Richard sat there silently, looking like he wanted to disappear. When the meeting ended, everyone filed out. Stephen approached me. Ms. Reed, I apologize. I should have better prepared Richard for this presentation. It's fine, Stephen. We all have off days. He lowered his voice. I also apologize if Richard was inappropriate this weekend. I understand there was a family event. Let's just say it was educational, I replied. For everyone involved. Stephen nodded. Understood. He left quickly. Richard had lingered near the door, waiting. When the room cleared, he approached hesitantly. Ms. Reed, I need to apologize. I looked at him calmly. For the poor presentation, for everything, for how we treated you Saturday. My wife and we didn't realize I was important enough to treat with basic respect? I interrupted. Here's the thing, Richard. How you treat people shouldn't depend on their job title or their bank account. It should depend on the fact that they're human beings who deserve dignity. He looked at the floor. You're right. I'm sorry. I softened slightly. I love my son. I want him to be happy. Amanda seems to make him happy. So I'm willing to move past this for their sake. But understand something clearly. I'm your EVP. I evaluate your performance, approve your advancement, and sign off on your compensation. What I saw Saturday doesn't inspire confidence in your judgment or character. He looked terrified. I understand. It won't happen again. See that it doesn't. He left. I sat alone in the conference room for a moment, feeling the weight of what I'd done. Had I been too harsh? Maybe. But people like Richard and Diane needed to understand that their behavior had consequences. That afternoon, I got a call on my cell phone. Diane Whitmore. I considered not answering, then decided to hear what she had to say. Catherine, her voice was different now. Smaller. I just spoke with Richard. I need to apologize. I waited. We were incredibly rude to you this weekend. I'm so embarrassed. I had no idea you were. She trailed off. That I was what, Diane? Successful? Important? Worthy of basic respect? She was quiet for a moment. You're right. There's no excuse for how we acted. Richard told me what happened in his meeting today. I feel terrible. I believe you feel terrible now that you know my position, I said. I'm less convinced you'd feel terrible if I was actually what you assumed I was. Someone with a modest job. Someone who needed to work hard to make ends meet. Would you be apologizing then? Silence. Here's what matters to me, I continued. My son loves your daughter. I want them to build a good life together. That means we need to figure out how to be family. But that requires mutual respect. Real respect. Not the kind that's based on job titles or bank accounts. I understand, she said quietly. You're right. I'm not used to being wrong. Or being called out. Most people who have power aren't, I said. But it's good for the soul occasionally. She laughed weakly. Can we start over? Please. We can try, I said. For Marcus and Amanda. Thank you, Catherine. Truly. We hung up. I stared at my phone for a moment, wondering if anything would actually change. That evening Marcus called. Mom, Amanda told me what happened. With her dad's meeting. I winced. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to embarrass anyone. Are you kidding? He was laughing. Mom, it's kind of amazing. Amanda says her parents have been humbled. Like genuinely humbled. Her mom has been apologizing all day. I didn't do it to humble them, I said. I did it because they needed to understand that people deserve respect regardless of their station in life. I know, Mom. And honestly, Amanda agrees. She was mortified when I told her how they treated you. She says they've always been kind of snobby, but this was over the top even for them. How is Amanda handling all this? She thinks it's hilarious actually. Says her dad has never been so flustered. And her mom has never apologized so much. I laughed despite myself. The next few weeks were interesting. The Whitmores made a visible effort. Diane called and invited me to lunch. Just the two of us. We met at a nice restaurant. She was gracious, genuine, asked me about my career, my life, actually listened. She told me about her own insecurities. How she'd married Richard young. Never worked. Always felt like she had to prove her worth through her home and her family and her social standing. How watching me command that boardroom had shaken something loose in her. I told her about working my way up. About being a single mother in a corporate world that often didn't make room for women like me. About proving myself over and over. About teaching Marcus that character mattered more than credentials. We found common ground. She wasn't a bad person. She was just someone who'd never been challenged to see beyond her own bubble. Richard was more difficult. He was deeply embarrassed and it showed in his work. Stephen mentioned that Richard was being unusually quiet in meetings, second-guessing himself. I pulled Richard aside one day. Told him to get over it. That I held no grudges, but I expected him to do his job well. That his performance was slipping and that wasn't acceptable. He nodded. Seemed relieved to have clear expectations. Over time things normalized. The Whitmores treated me with genuine warmth. Not the fake deference of people trying to impress their boss, but actual family warmth. Marcus and Amanda got married 6 months later. Beautiful ceremony. Both families involved working together. Diane asked my opinion on flowers. Richard walked Amanda down the aisle with tears in his eyes. At the reception, Diane gave a speech. She talked about family, about love, about learning and growing. Then she looked at me. I need to thank Catherine, she said. Not just for raising an incredible son who makes my daughter so happy, but for teaching me an important lesson about respect and humility. I didn't handle our first meeting well. Actually, I handled it terribly. But Catherine had grace enough to give us a second chance. To show us that family is built on mutual respect, not assumptions or prejudices. The room applauded. Marcus was beaming. Amanda was crying. Richard stood and raised his glass. To Catherine he said, "The best boss I've ever had and the best mother-in-law anyone could ask for. Thank you for your patience with us. We're better people for knowing you." More applause. I felt tears in my eyes. After the wedding, life settled into a good rhythm. Sunday dinners with Marcus and Amanda. Holiday celebrations with both families. Watching them build their life together. Richard actually became a better employee. More thoughtful, more empathetic with his team. Stephen mentioned the change. Said whatever happened had made Richard a better leader. I never told anyone at work the full story of that engagement party. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Some lessons are better learned privately. But I did frame something and put it on my office wall. The invitation to Marcus and Amanda's wedding. A reminder that respect is earned not through titles or money, but through how we treat people when we think no one important is watching. Because someone is always watching. And everyone is important. The Whitmores learned that the hard way. They treated me like a servant at my son's engagement party. Then learned I was their boss's boss. But more importantly, they learned that human decency shouldn't depend on someone's position. That respect is owed to everyone, regardless of who they are or what they do. It was an expensive lesson for them. A humiliating one. But ultimately a necessary one. And in the end it made us all better. Better family. Better people. Sometimes the best lessons come from unexpected places. Sometimes the person setting up your tables is also the person signing your paycheck. And sometimes the universe has a perfect sense of irony.